Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I am your host, Tim Brayton, joined this week by two friends of the show, long-term guests whose voices you'll probably recognize. First up, we have Zev Burrows. How are you doing today, Zev?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for having me back, Tim.
Excellent. Oh, it was a pleasure to have you. And we also have today Cameron Shaw. How are you doing, Cameron?
Pretty good. It's finally stopped raining in San Francisco as soon as I came inside for the day.
Oh,
So,
good. It uh,
yeah.
it is intermittently raining here in Wisconsin, so we'll see if it continues to not rain during the entire recording of this episode. But that might be a fun little sonic bonus for all of you listening if every now and then you hear just kind of a wash of water over my dialogue. But so we are here to
Or
discuss.
mine.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We are here to discuss the films of Pixar Animation Studio. We kind of selected this for a sort of shared reason. One is that the film Hoppers, the studio's newest original film, just came out a few weeks before the recording and release of this episode, and was sort of a hit. I think it made more money than a lot of their films recently, certainly compared to last year's film Elio, which was a rather substantial bomb actually for Pixar. So we have a film that's kind of creating this like new inflection point to talk about what is going on at Pixar. Are they thriving? Are they struggling? What are kind of movies are they making? But the other thing for me that kind of nudged me into this is we're also recording this in the shadow of the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which is of course not Pixar, but does feel like a kind of signpost for the process that's been going on for some years now of Illumination Entertainment becoming the big animation studio, at least in terms of box office take, that Pixar was some years ago. And so it just felt like a kind of moment to take stock of where we are with this studio, with maybe American animation generally. But I also wanted to, just we'll talk more about the topic as we get there. It's a kind of an evergreen topic, I think. So hopefully this is something you all are interested in listening to. Before we get into Pixar, though, we have some other movies to talk about. As always, we have our movie roundtable where we share films we've watched recently, uh, movies we liked, movies we didn't like and want to warn you away from, but either way, just movies we thought were worth mentioning. So, Zev, what do you have for us that you wanted to talk about this week?
So, continuing with the 2026 Name a Woman Challenge on Letterboxd, this week's category was a feature debut by a woman, and I chose the feature debut by the late magnificent Anya Svarda. La
Hmm.
Pointe de Corte debuted at the Cannes Film Festival in 1955 and is a drama set against sort of a poorish town, fishing town off the French Mediterranean coast. Sort of, I don't want to say sort of like a slice of life, but sort of like a documentary look at the town, and also a little bit a look at a couple who has come to this town several years after they've been married, and I want to point out that the husband was born in this particular town and has a lot of particular nostalgia for it, and um, they are going through some marital crises against the backdrop of the town having their own uh, crises in terms of poverty. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention some wonderful movie cats. Anya Svarda was particularly known for her affinity for cats, and there are quite a few good ones, and she made them look uh, regal as anything else, and that is one of the many things that I love about her. But this debut came actually just a couple of years before, I believe, a couple of years before both the 400 Blows and Breathless, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, were the debut features of Truffaut and Godard. I don't know that they made. Okay. And I believe this was also completely unrelated, but maybe
Yes, that's
not.
correct.
Also, this predates the debut feature of Cassavetes, Shadows, I think.
Hmm.
I am not 1,000% sure that's his debut. I think it is, and I think it does predate that, yes.
Okay. Completely unrelated to what we're talking about. I don't know why that just flashed into my head, but it's always a good day when we talk about Cassavetes. But we're here to talk about Anya Sparta. Um, this I had an interesting reaction to this one. It's very much uh, sort of, I think it's very rough around the edges. I do like it very much. I do recommend it. Um, I'm going to quote a little bit from this little letterbox blurb that I just put up. Listening to the male half of the couple do everything that he can to save his quote unquote failing marriage, and I don't want to get into spoilers here directly, is kind of funny and a little bit pathetic. Um, and the decision to there's this particular artistic decision that I noticed to silence the actual film audio and replace it with voiceover like dialogue. Correct me if I'm wrong. And a very melancholic all clarinet score sort of gets us inside his wife's point of view, highlighting for what I thought basically a desire to be anywhere but where she is at that exact moment in time. And I don't know if that's I don't know how on point you feel that is, Tim, or if you had a different reaction to that.
No, I mean it's been some years since I watched this, so my memories aren't like razor sharp. That seems totally in accord with how I remember this film,
Hmm.
for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very clear that they are living somewhere very much removed. Their state of being, their minds are both very much removed from that of the village, who are dealing with quite a lot. Basically, governmental issues, but also uh, just general poverty issues. Um, it's a really nice. No, it's not a nice movie. It is. Um, it's a. It's. I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it. Um, Come back to me. May want to do some filler.
No worries. No, no. I mean, I would certainly say, I saw this film, I think in 2017 for the first and only time, and my memories of it are not, as I said, all that clear, but I do remember thinking, that it was both a road not traveled for Varda. Like, I think it's quite unlike most of what she would go on to do.
Yeah,
Um, it is, it is much more like trying to be a neo-realist art film than I think she would end up being interested in. And it's good at that, but it's kind of a different twist to that. What did strike me though, the two things that I think of as being very characteristic of Varda, um, she's certainly a filmmaker whose movies kind of straddle that documentary fiction line where it's like she's so interested in places as they are and people as they are in those places. And there's some of that in here, but she also, wants to create these very crafted narratives that she can explore specific emotional responses. And I think you see that in a lot of her fiction films, that they're fictions within the real world, and the real world is sort of presented in its documentary reality. And I think there's some of that here. And the word I would use to describe it, it's I think very humane. Like I think she's really letting people be people, and even when they're disappointing and they're maybe a little bit pathetic and foolish, she's not she's not asking them to be something other than humans. Like she admires that humans are sloppy and messy and make mistakes, and I think that she's a generous filmmaker and that she gives her characters room to do that.
she's one of the least demeaning filmmakers that I can
I
possibly
think
think
I
of,
think that's a very good way of putting it.
and
I think
yeah,
like a film that I would sort of weirdly want to compare this to is like Vagabond, where like the character's just constantly making mistakes, but like that's what's beautiful about it, is that she has that freedom to go out in this world and do those things and make those mistakes, and that there's something kind of very special about having that ability. And I think that that's a little bit at play here too, with in terms of like the husband specifically.
I saw that for the first time last year, and I had pretty much the exact same reaction. But I want to also compare this a little bit to a movie of hers that I just recently saw, also part of the challenge. The English translation is Happiness, La
The
Bonne,
Bonheur.
yeah, a film that she made in the '60s. Very, absolutely gorgeous colors. Very happy, but not happy at all. Like I think when I think of her, I almost think it's some people have generalized sometimes to speak of her movies like warm hugs. That is not a warm. Neither of these are warm hugs of movies.
Hmm.
But that one, I think, kind of finds her in sort of it's a much more it's a much darker movie than this one. I think because it is so upbeat, um, and that kind of caught me off guard a little bit when I first saw it because it really was unlike anything I had seen of hers, whether it was Vagabond or Cleo from 5 to 7 or her documentaries. So
I'd say that Varda cuts across the grain of French filmmaking a lot, but I would also say a French filmmaker is still a French filmmaker. And if you get a French movie called Happiness, you understand intuitively that's going to be about the most miserable, self-destructive people on the planet.
even
So,
even then I wasn't prepared for how far she would take that in this movie. But
absolutely.
I do like La Pointe de Court. Um, not one of my more favorites of hers, but I think it's a very interesting debut and um, I don't know. I don't like. We should not compare, but part of me can't help but do that. Damn it! God damn it!
No, it is a seedling from which a wonderful career began, but it is different than what her best films would be,
Totally.
I think. Cameron, is this a film you have seen? I don't know really how much Varda you've seen because I know you're not like the
I
world's biggest French film fan.
Hey, listen, I like French films that aren't overly pretentious.
So you're not the biggest French film fan.
I don't have a great grounding in Varda. I've seen Cleo from 5 to 7. I've seen Faces Places. I've seen part of The Gleaners, and I should really finish that.
Yeah, as I say, Gleaners specifically is like the film I would ask you to watch if I wanted you to get
Yeah.
into Varda.
Well, I think which is why I started watching it, and then I think it was on Canopy, and then it left Canopy, or something
Mm,
like that happened. Anyway, uh, I I like what I've seen of hers. I like that. I like her documentaries, I think in particular. I agree, at least from based on Faces Places, that she is not a condescending filmmaker,
mhm.
um, which I appreciate about her. Uh, may have something to do with her being a woman. Not to make gross generalizations or anything, but I would like to know more about her. So I've just been sitting here quietly thinking, gosh, I really need to delve into Agnes Varda a bit more.
The other film, and this is not an Agnes Varda podcast, but the other film of hers that I think really is worth seeing, certainly in that like in very specifically a gendered way, because it's kind of all about being a mother. But she made a film called Daguerreotype in 1975, which
Mm,
is very unfathomably generous to the people in it. It's a documentary, and I believe her son Matthew had just been born, and she was kind of housebound as a result because she couldn't like leave her child. So she found out a way to rig the camera such that she could like take it out of the window of her apartment basically and like wander around and filming things without being too far from the apartment. And she lived at that time on the Rue Daguerre, hence Daguerreotype. And it's this like just kind of stroll through all of the storefronts and places that she can reach within like whatever it is, like 150 meters of her house. And just like kind of soaking up all of the humanity that she finds in this kind of nondescript part of Paris. I think it is just an unbelievably beautiful and generous film. It's one of my favorites of hers. So if either of you haven't seen that, that I think is a great picture.
okay.
Yeah. But so what are you bringing to the table, Cameron? Since you're not going to tell me that you love French people after all.
Well, speaking of first features, first directorial features, I, the other night, saw a 40th anniversary screening of Return to Oz, which is a film that I kind of unabashedly adore, and a lot of people sort of treat as a midnight movie, sort of like cult classic at this point. Um, and I think it has started to be appreciated for the interesting film that it is. This is a 1985 sequel, sort of, to The Wizard of Oz. It sort of takes the story that is in the second and third Oz books and kind of meshes them together so that they are one story. And it is a bit of an awkward story because of that. Um, this was directed by Walter Murch, the editor of The Conversation and Apocalypse Now and, a million other, The English Patient, Captain EO, which I didn't know until this screening because Walter Murch was at this screening, which is why I got tickets for it. Um, and I want to say he's 83 at this point. He looks real good. He's still, cognitively with it and everything. He had a lot to say about his career and this film in general. It was a little bit, I hate to say this, it was a bit of a boring Q&A. I don't know whether that was the guy asking the questions or if it was just he kind of has this monotone voice and it was 10:30 at night and it was it was it was a little dull, but he's an interesting person. He has a new book out, so I think that was part of the impetus for him appearing at this screening as well. Um anyway, this film was kind of a staple of my childhood. So the Oz books were a big deal in my family. My dad read all 14 of them to my brother and I multiple times when we were kids and had this magic trick that to this day I don't really know how he did it, where we'd finish a book and we were asked to go run around the island in the kitchen 3 times without looking at him. And when we stopped and came back, the next book was there, and the other book was hidden somewhere in the house. And that's the part that I don't know how he did it. I'm sure it was just sort of like a sleight of hand. These kids are 6 years old and don't know, I can redirect their attention. But yeah, I should ask at some point how he did that. But so they kind of had this magical thing going in our childhood, and so I was really into this movie. Um, I want to say maybe even more than the actual Wizard of Oz, which is strange, but it is a children's movie. It is not a happy children's movie. So it's actually very terrifying. And as listeners of this podcast probably know, I'm not one for scary movies. This scary movie had zero effect on me as a kid. It's like there's a witch who swaps out her head for the heads of people from that she's stolen from the citizens of Oz, and there's this scene where all the heads are in their cabinets asleep, and then they wake up and all start screaming at the same time. There's these creepy guys called the Wheelers who have wheels for hands and feet, and make this terrifying screechy wheel noise whenever they show up. There's the Gnome King is the big bad guy at the end of the movie. And then there's this whole electroshock therapy part that kind of bookends Dorothy traveling to Oz in this story. And that's the part that's not part of the books, the original books. But so I saw this movie. It's very well crafted. It has all these like puppets. Oh, hi, my cat's here to say hi. Um, it has puppets and claymation and incredible costumes, incredible set pieces, some really, I mean, nowadays it's very obvious that they are screen paintings, but at the time I totally bought them as like incredibly fanciful creations. I don't know. I feel like everybody should see this movie if you haven't already. It is sort of a like fever dream of a Wizard of Oz movie.
You
Have
know,
either of
it's
you seen this?
I've seen it. I actually have a review of it on the site, I think. I do like this movie
Okay.
quite a lot. And I don't think I ever did watch it as a child, but I think I might have seen specifically the head scene, or maybe even just like
Uh-huh.
pictures of the head scene, and I think that's why, because it messed me up like a lot.
Oh yeah.
It's like a delightfully messed up scene. I think it's one of the great like children's horror scenes of a generation that had a lot of children's horror in it. But no, I think this is a good movie, and I think to your point that you might like it more than The Wizard of Oz. I mean, I don't, because Wizard of Oz is a movie that I would take with me to my
Sure.
grave. But I think it's the sort of thing where like there are a handful of movies that you just can't watch. Like they are too much the thing in culture that they are, and I think Wizard of Oz is one of them. Like It's a Wonderful Life is potentially another one of like those kinds of
Hmm.
movies that are just such a fact of like a classic American cinema that you just can't really look at them anymore. And I think Return to Oz is not that, so it still feels like something you can have a personal relationship to, which whatever one could
Yeah,
say
and
about Wizard of Oz, you can't, I don't think. But yeah.
yeah. It's also it adheres much more faithfully to the actual books,
Hmm.
which are kind of dark.
Oh yeah.
Turn of the century America, turn of the, 19th to 20th, there we go. Not 18th to 19th. 19th to 20th century is when L. Frank Baum was writing these books, and for all of his personal flaws, he was very creative but also dark, with characters and situations, and this it's very faithful to that and more
Hmm.
of a kind of a realistic Oz world, um, and a realistic like Kansas when where Dorothy comes from, where they're operating in the aftermath of the tornado and they're trying to rebuild a house, and Uncle Henry has broken his leg, and uh, it's bleak, um, but it also is, it's kind of a different reimagining of the colorful candy world that Oz is in the Judy Garland film. So, Zev, have you seen this movie?
I wish I had seen it as a child. I saw it for the first
Yeah.
time like right at the height of the pandemic. I think it was May 2020
Mm.
when I first saw this, and I was kind of dismissive of it. And I feel like it's a movie that I feel like there's probably a lot, maybe quite a bit of 80s fantasy, and I'm sure Legend also falls into this category with me as well, that I would appreciate much
Yes.
more on a rewatch, because I also saw Legend for the first time during the pandemic. And I wasn't as appreciative of Legend as I probably would be on a rewatch. And I think Return to Oz certainly falls in that category. I would you put me down for a rewatch of Return to Oz faster than you would get me to see Wicked for Good for a single time. So
That is fair. I would
Yeah.
also I would also say Legend is not as good as Return to Oz. Like Return to Oz hangs together as an object that can be watched more than Legend does, which is just kind of like a series of anecdotes. And I like those
Yeah.
anecdotes, but
and I
Yeah.
think I've
Return to Oz, I mean, sorry, go
no
ahead.
no no you go ahead, Cameron.
I went to a midnight screening once of Return to Oz, or maybe it was a late night screening. I don't know if it was really midnight, at the New Bev in LA, and it was the kind of movie like Rocky Horror where like certain lines get said and people yell things back at the
huh.
screen. Um, so like every time an egg was or egg, the word egg was said because eggs are poisonous to the gnomes in Oz, apparently. People would yell egg, and it was very fun. So I feel like
Okay.
that's the kind of like cult status that it has achieved.
Interesting. I did not know there was a call and response version of this.
I
That's
mean,
weird.
only in that one screening.
Okay.
So there are multiple instances of offering eggs in trying times. Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I may have just spoiled part of the ending with the egg thing, but
Yeah.
throughout the whole movie, the gnomes are afraid of the chicken that comes to Oz with Dorothy, and then you finally find out why.
I would say, I mean, Zev definitely, this is a very worthwhile film to revisit. I think it's a really incredible piece of practical filmmaking. Like 80s fantasy is a sweet spot for me, and I think this is one of the most like not polished, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's very elaborate. There's just a lot of stuff in this movie, and it's I think done very, very well.
On the subject of 80s fantasy and particularly Disney's 80s fantasy, I think this was also the same year as Black Cauldron.
That sounds correct.
this was 85. And when I
Yeah.
rewatched The Black Cauldron a couple of years ago, I definitely appreciated that much more than the first two times I had seen it. I was a big Prydain Chronicles fan, and I
Sure.
hated it the first two times I saw it, and I was like, "What stick up my ass did I have?" But
Well, I mean, also the Black Cauldron is a fundamentally cursed object. So I think
yeah,
if your contention is that the Black Cauldron didn't work, you're correct. I mean, it's just interesting
it
anyways.
doesn't work, but I would still sooner sit down and watch it than you know. Even a lot of '80s live
Wicked
action,
too.
like I certainly would sooner sit down with it again than I would Willow. But
Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know if we're all in agreement on that, or if I'm
I I don't see Willow clearly. It was way too important to me when I was 7.
I
okay.
agree. I don't think I've seen it since I was probably 14 too. So I don't know that I want to go back and rewatch it and see it with adult eyes.
I believe the last time I watched it was in the run up to Solo, a Star Wars story, because I was watching
Oh,
the Ron Howard's previous working with George Lucas's vision.
Uh, I think
weird.
I saw it for the first and only time, also during the pandemic. So, '80s
Okay.
fantasy and me during the pandemic was not good. Fuck.
Yeah, I have you seen Krull by any chance?
People have been telling me to watch Kroll for years.
Watch Krull before you give up on 80s fantasy, especially because you're a score guy.
Okay.
I know that's one of people's favorite James Horner scores. And I'm not saying I'm completely giving up on '80s fantasy. I still need to see the cut of Legend with the Jerry Goldsmith score because I think I've
hmm
only seen the Tangerine Dream cut. So
I I am agnostic on which one of those is better.
Have you seen Lady Hawk? Oh, you should see Lady
You
Hawk.
should see Lady Hawk. Lady Hawk is Lady Hawk is kind of fascinating because it's like it's grounded, I think, to a specific year. I think it like takes place in a year in medieval France.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay, I don't remember that.
but
But
like
yeah,
so
I believe you.
like it's not like a Willow or a Crawl or whatnot where it takes place somewhere in fantasy. Like it takes place in medieval Europe, concretely. But it's also like really not realistic in any way, shape, or form.
It's so bizarre. And Zev, I can't wait for you to see this.
I
See
just
Lady Hawk.
I
It's
just put
gonna
it
be
on my
great.
watch list, and
Excellent.
Richard Donner directed this with
He
Matthew
sure did.
Broderick
Hmm.
and Alfred Molina and Michelle Pfeiffer.
hmm
All right,
Yeah, it's
it's
not for a
happening.
lightweight.
Yeah.
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 Great.
I did want to before I guess we have drifted away from Return to Oz, but to drift back to it for a moment. I'm curious if he addressed this, Cameron, at the Q&A.
Mhm.
I've never understood why this is the project Walter Murch directed. I think his only film he directed, correct?
Yes, I think as far as I'm aware, it is the only film that he's directed. It was certainly the first film that he
Like
directed.
what was the process that led to noted editor and sound designer Walter Murch making this children's fantasy movie?
So the way he made it sound was that Disney kind of invited him to pitch them a film as a
Okay.
director, and he came up with, I think he had been reading the books perhaps to his kids,
Okay.
came up with this idea, sequel to The Wizard of Oz, and Disney said, "Hey, we already own that IP, and I think that the IP was about to be in the public domain, so they had to re-up the ownage of the IP. Um,
Uh,
so they jumped at it. Is my if I understood his story correctly, and as I said, it was a little dull, so there may have been some times where I kind of zoned out, but it that was the IP part is certainly true. Whether or not it was because he was reading the
okay.
books with his kids, I don't know, but yeah.
Gotcha. It does bum me out to hear that apparently age and evening hours and old people they get fatigued. But
Yeah.
it bums me out to hear that because he like 30 years ago recorded a series of lectures about editing that are I think just gripping. And he wrote a book called In the Blink of an Eye that is like the book on
Yeah.
editing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was just a bad day for him. Who
Okay.
knows?
Oh,
But it was,
he's 83. Like we
and
can't
it was
expect.
10:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So
it is what it is.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to my part of the movie roundtable now. This is, as usually is the case when I bring a movie to the roundtable, selected for me by one of our Patreon supporters. In this case, the Patreon supporter is our long-term friend of the website, Hallbarthur Jan Gudmundsson, who has asked me to watch a movie from Iceland in 1996 called Devil's Island. This is a film directed and I believe not written, directed by the filmmaker Friðrik Thor Friðriksson. It is a movie that I learned a lot from because it is set at a point in time. It's set in like the early 1950s, and it is about a specific thing that was happening in Iceland in the immediate post-war era, which is that the U.S. Military, I'm not sure which branch of the military, had an abandoned military site on Iceland. And as far as I can tell, this part's true, called Camp Thule. And this abandoned military installation basically became the housing for people who had been kind of displaced and made homeless because of the war. So you have this like at the edge of Iceland in this like bombed out failing part of the island, these old decaying buildings that are sort of filled with the ghosts of the American military and a couple actual American military attaches who are there to like keep the place from just collapsing into rubble. And this is where you have these like deeply impoverished Icelanders who are trying to just live in this chaotic post-war place. Um, and so that's the setting. And I had no idea any of this happened. Like this is all brand new information to me. So that already kind of makes it very interesting and cool to me. I am a big fan of the genre is not the word, but this moment that followed World War II in the early Cold War, where the United States is one of two superpowers, right? We had us, you had the USSR. And there was a kind of very conscious effort in the United States to wage a soft power global war against the USSR by spreading things like movies and Coca-Cola and rock and roll and hamburgers to become this kind of like global culture. And we're in it still. I mean, McDonald's is the most widespread food vendor in the planet. Um, and so you have all of these films of like people in the 50s, not in the United States, like in various countries around the world, kind of grappling with how much their culture is becoming the culture of the United States. And I mostly think of that in terms of Japan, where that was like a very specific kind of government run policy of part of like Japanification. And and so like it's something I've already always been interested in, but like seeing it in this context of Iceland was brand new to me because again I had no idea this was going on there, and certainly the way that it's colored by this like horrible military site where they're trying to make a community really I think makes it much more caustic and sarcastic even than I would typically see. And again, this movie's being made 45 years after the events it's depicting, but it's very much it doesn't have a plot. It has more just kind of characters rattling around against each other. It's kind of Altman-esque in that sense. There's sort of a main character, a young man named Body, played by the future director, Baltasar Kormákur, who he's made a few things that I think have kind of hit in the US. He made Adrift. He made Two Guns. Not that Two Guns is anyone's favorite movie, but it's a movie that happened in the world. Um, but anyway, so before he was a director, he was apparently an actor. So he plays this young man who gets really, really into US pop culture, but some of the adults around him are like, this is screwed up and weird. Like this isn't good pop culture. What are you doing? Like you're kind of making it harder for us to figure out how to live in this really perilous place. So there's kind of a plot as far as that goes, but it's really much more just about all of these people kind of thrown into this situation, trying to make the best of it. And they're these sort of weird, interesting, colorful characters. Like there's an old lady who's just really mad and angry all the time and is possibly hallucinating things. And it's a dark comedy, but it's very, very dark, and the comedy is very, very dry. So it's just about these people who, again, are trying to figure out what does it mean to be an Icelander in the early 50s when our island has been like torn apart by the Nazis and now it's being torn apart by the Americans. And we're just trying to have a culture here. We're just trying to have a community, and we're living in this like fake place, essentially. Like, how are we supposed to interact with each other in the world around us? And then that's kind of compounded by this generational divide over whether America is what's going to give us a new direction or if America is just kind of this horrible mirage that's going to make everything even worse. And the film doesn't really have an answer to that, but it is clearly not a film that is pro the American pop culture. It is maybe neutral on, but it is certainly not pro, I would say. Um, so I really, really got a kick out of this film. It's a film that I am confident I missed stuff. It is very about what it means to be on Iceland, and I am not that kind of. I've never been. I don't know anyone from that island, so like I'm sure there are like cultural nuances that are just completely missing to me. But I thought it was quite funny at the register it is trying to be funny on, and again, very, very dark comedy here, very bitter in a lot of ways. But the characters are really interesting. It's just really a lot of fun to spend time with them. It's kind of just there aesthetically, like it's part of that 90s pseudo indie look where like everything has that very distinctively 90s film stock that makes everything seem a little white and brown. Um,
Yes.
and I think it makes it work because again, part of the point of Devil's Island is that it's an awful place. It's just kind of mud and brick and not much else. So like the fact that it looks kind of drab fits the mood very well. But it's certainly not a film that I think one would watch because one is interested in like a really exciting stylistic display. But it's just so cool at the level of like character work and seeing how these people interact. And I mean, again, anytime that I use the word Altman-esque to describe something, I had a good time. And I think this is certainly within the penumbra of Altman style character ensembles. So
Hmm.
yeah, I enjoyed this. I'm going to make the assumption that neither of you have seen this movie.
Nope.
No, but if Wikipedia is to be believed, it's the number one grossing Icelandic film of all time.
Okay, so see, then presumably there are definitely some cultural nuances that I
Yes.
did not latch onto.
Yeah.
It is, for what it's worth, on the internet. I don't think there's any way to like quote unquote legally watch it, but I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast. There's a website called OK.ru. So if you are willing to risk your computer catching God knows what Russian digital STDs, uh, I go in with a VPN and with all sorts of stuff like latched in place because I just don't know. The website has like every movie on it somehow, and that is where I found this.
Wow.
So it is searchable. I can't say about a Google search. I use DuckDuckGo, and DuckDuckGo's video search like is very happy to find links from OK.ru. That is where I found this movie. So I think worth it. The copy I found was kind of battered. I think it was a 480p copy, but you got to do what you got to do with Icelandic movies from the 1990s that, as far as I can tell, didn't get released in the United States.
Well, that may have contributed to the muddiness of the picture.
I think that's a very realistic possibility.
Putting
Yeah.
that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like grunge before grunge or grunge after grunge, depending on how you want to look at it.
Meta grunge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, so I definitely enjoyed this. Thank you, I definitely enjoyed this. Thank you, Halbartha, for putting it in front of me. I most certainly would not have heard of this movie. So I appreciate having heard of it and having watched it. Um, which, if you, like Arthur, want to support the show by making me watch things, I think we are currently still sold out on make Tim watch things level contributions, but you can support the show through Patreon, which, among other things, lets you read reviews in advance of classic movies. Just had one of those not that long ago of Women in Love. And also, if you want to vote in our polls, you can certainly do that as a Patreon as well. We just had a poll recently for what Brennan and I were going to watch for Bride of Alternate Ending, our horror podcast. And also, depending on your support level, you might be able to play one of our trivia nights, which one of those is coming up. We don't have a date yet, but Brennan and I are starting to have a conversation about when we want to have one of our semi-frequent trivia nights. It'll probably be sometime in the month of May. So if you've been thinking about supporting the show, the month of May might be a really good time to move forward on that because you'll get to play trivia with us all. All right. Well, with that, let's turn to our major topic for the day, which again is Pixar animation studios. And Zev, you were the one who initially pitched this topic. And I believe the exact way you framed it on the pitch was Pixar Studios, what the hell is going on? Or something like that. And I guess I would first ask, is that still your feeling?
Yeah,
What the hell is going on
actually,
with Pixar?
yes. Um, but I wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, Hopper's marks number 30. Marks Pixar's
Oh,
30.
it feels like we just were at number 25.
Yeah.
Damn, it's just
Tur-
going so quick.
Turning Red was 25, and then Lightyear, Elemental, Inside Out 2, Elio, and now finally Hoppers. So,
Yep,
Ay.
that's how math works, all right.
yeah. It kind of, I don't want to say a depressing lineup, but uh, what are you going to do? Um, but
It's
yeah.
this is part of what we're here to talk about. Like, is it a depressing lineup, or is there something about that we can? Yes, it is. It's a depressing lineup.
Yeah.
It just is.
Well, I think the question is it a depressing lineup or are we just all adults? Don't
I
you
mean,
think?
I was an adult the entire time that Pixar existed. I mean, I was
That
not
is
an
not
adult
true.
adult. I
You might
was
have been a very wizened child, but you
I
were not an
I
adult
was
in
I was
1995.
I was 14 years old. I was not like a kids movie level child.
Okay, fair enough. But like, okay, I will allow you to say that.
Thank you.
I was a year and a half old when Toy Story came
Yeah.
out, so sorry, Tim. I know you.
That's okay. That's okay.
I know
But I mean,
you were looking at me.
like Cameron, you and I were like in college when like Finding Nemo happened.
Yes, solidly in college, and that was a great movie. And
Yeah,
yes, it like accessed the childlike joy of the other Pixar films. But I do think that being in college is a whole different type of being an adult than we are now.
that is fair. That is fair.
Yes.
Well, I did want to start this part of the conversation by kind of letting us all share like what is our relationship to the Pixar filmography. Um, and I know Cameron that you're actually the one who left Pixar fastest of the three of us. So I'd be curious if you would kind of give us the quick version. Like what do you feel about Pixar? Like
Sure.
how are you related to the studio?
I can't, okay, so I don't think I actually left Pixar. I did say that to you guys that I tapped out after Soul, which came out in 2020. Um, And looking at the actual release dates, I've seen a couple of them since then. Never because I was excited about them.
Okay,
So, like starting at the very beginning, I think my favorite Pixar movie is Monsters, Inc. Um, maybe Wall-E. So those are maybe I feel like most people would say Toy Story, but or the Toy Story universe. Um, But maybe there's also not a most people answer for Pixar. I think maybe they all speak to people in different ways. Um, Monsters Inc. just was, I feel like it was the right balance of funny and poignant for me. Um, and I think that I started being skeptical about their screenwriters, scripts, ideas starting with Brave in 2012. I didn't like Brave at all.
hmm,
I think some of the animation is beautiful. I thought the story was dumb, and I still think the story is dumb, which is maybe the reason why I didn't like Turning Red because they're very similar. Turning Red I did see, but not in theaters. So yeah, when Soul came out and it was kind of direct to video or direct to streaming because of the pandemic, I watched it and I liked it fine, but I was sort of like, meh, I don't really care. And since then, yeah, I've seen Turning Red, I've seen Lightyear. I think Lightyear, my brother somehow got free tickets to a screening. And I've seen Elemental, which I thought was just trash. So, um, I haven't seen Inside Out 2 or Ilio or Hoppers. Apparently, Hoppers is about a beaver, which why it's not about a rabbit, I don't really know, but maybe you guys can help me with that.
I had the same response because I knew the title first. I knew it was about wildlife, and I was, oh, it's about rabbits, and it's
Yeah.
apparently not about rabbits.
Yeah.
I
Oh, so
haven't
you haven't
seen
seen,
I haven't seen
okay.
Hoppers. I was unable to make it happen before this recording session, so we are going to be extensively relying on your report, Sev, to make sense of Hoppers.
It also came out right before Easter. So like why not the rat whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, Zev, I'm curious what you have to say about Hoppers.
Yeah, because well, you grew up with Pixar too, so like you're going to have a
Yeah.
very different relationship to it than Cameron and I did.
Yeah. So again, I guess I have, in a sense, grown up with Pixar, and sort of. I guess I was very much into Pixar in my early childhood, and then during, I guess during what we would probably call, uh, I guess, basically the one, two, three, like punch of like Ratatouille, Wally, Up. I missed all of those in
Hmm.
theaters because I was like going through. I
Uh,
was going through my sort of like anti Disney, anti Pixar kind of phase. Not so much anti Pixar because I was still rewatching The Incredibles quite a lot, but but I was still kind of on that kick, and probably it was probably Toy Story 3, seeing Toy Story 3 in theaters that got me out of that phase. More successful. I had also skipped out on The Princess and the Frog in theaters. Um, Semi
so
related,
you're
but
part of the reason that 2D animation died.
oh
So I
shit.
hope you feel comfortable with that.
Thanks a lot, Zev.
I hope you feel good about your choices.
You know what? I we're gonna cut that out. No, we're not. No, Tim's gonna make me suffer for
I
that.
have final cut. I have final cut. Yes.
Um,
No, it's
no,
fine.
no,
Everyone in North America skip that movie. You're in
yeah,
good company.
but and I do like Princess and the Frog quite a bit, but Toy Story 3 kind of got me out of that funk because obviously the Toy Story movies are, at least the first three, are that important to me. Um, and I was for a long time very much content to say that Toy Story, the first Toy Story, was Pixar's greatest feature, probably right up until I went through all of Pixar's features prior to the release of Hoppers over the past couple of months. And I am happy to say that I can safely call Wally their greatest feature without question. Um,
Yeah.
but um, but yeah, I mean, and I stuck by Pixar throughout college, and I've continued, I guess, to stick by Pixar throughout, even though there have been a lot of dark patches in the last couple of years. But sort of my impetus for wanting to do this is sort of to ask a lot of questions about Pixar. How did this go from the most consistently reliable animation juggernaut in America for a long time to one where it kind of feels like they're where there's very little difference between them and modern Disney animation these days, because
Mhm.
to me they feel very much it kind of doesn't feel like there's a lot of difference, and even people these days when I talk to them about, and I say, oh no, that was Pixar, oh no, that was Disney, and they go, what, really? That was, and so getting the differences between these two studios now, and it might just be the case that because it wasn't, for me that wasn't the case necessarily when something like Inside Out came out in 2015, and this was long after Disney had purchased Pixar, I
Mhm.
believe in 2006. So, but for
Yeah,
me,
Yeah.
2006.
Inside Out was kind of the last gasp of Pixar's golden age before everything fell off, and I don't consider that part of their golden age. For me, that's like 95 to 2010 is kind of when I would lock in those years of Pixar's golden age. I don't know how similarly you feel, Tim, because for me, that the run of those first couple of movies, there's only one inconsistent movie with the rest of the bunch, and for me, that's Cars. But other than
Hmm.
that, like, so I had a lot of questions about what has
Sure.
happened to Pixar. Is it just is it just being swallowed up and sort of homogenized a little bit? Um, so what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I will say in sort of no particular order, I have exactly the same years as you do. Like I think Toy Story 3 represents kind of the pinnacle, or not pinnacle, but the climax year of the golden age, because then Cars 2 happens, and Cars 2 is just it's just bad. I I think there's more than two Pixar films that I don't like very much. There are two Pixar films that I think are just bad, and
Ooh,
they are Cars 2 and Lightyear.
okay.
Probably.
You
Yeah.
you sound I'm curious. I'm curious by that response.
Well, like I said, I think Brave is bad.
See,
Um,
I like parts of Brave. Although I think when you pick Brave as being the year that it felt like stuff was starting to fall apart, that's a key film for the studio because that is the first one of their films that like broke, and they tried to do some shuffling of the directors behind the scenes.
yeah.
And I will say I think the version of Brave that we didn't get, which was just exclusively Brenda Chapman talking about mother-daughter relationships, I would love to see that movie because I think the mother-daughter relationship part of Brave works. I think that the stuff where the daughter and her mother, the bear, are like feuding is kind of charming. I don't know what changed. Like I don't know what parts of that film were brought in after she was fired.
Hmm.
Certainly, I think the concern was probably that it was too feminine, and there wasn't like what are boys gonna like in Brave, and I don't know that they answered that question because I don't know what they added. I mean, like, is it the three brothers who also turn into bears? Because that part sucks. Uh,
Or
but so I mean,
is
like,
it the Mordu character? Maybe.
I
Oh,
mean, I don't
maybe.
know. I mean, it could be. I think it's definitely the case that again, the good version of Brave is surely the version that is start to finish a Brenda Chapman vision, a woman's vision, I think, of this mother-daughter relationship. And I get why the Pixar Brain Trust in 2012 kiboshed that because it was a real boys club at that point, and still
It
somewhat is.
it was, and yet at the same time, just a few years later, they put out Inside Out,
That's true.
which
That's true.
is very female centric. I
That
mean,
is very, very fair. Like literally only two movies later. The only film in between Brave and Inside Out is Monsters University,
yeah.
which I'm not terribly fond of either.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I think a few of the Cars sequels and Monsters University are all kind of meh.
Yeah.
Finding Dory was kind of cute. Incredibles 2 I actually liked, but you know.
Incredibles 2 is easily my favorite Pixar film post Inside Out, and I actually might like it better than Inside Out. I remain undecided. They're scratching two different itches for me.
That's
Yeah,
a
Inside Out I felt like was a little like twee. Like, oh, isn't this cute that we're just taking all of these emotions and giving them specific colors and like personifying them quite literally. Other than the Bing Bong stuff, I felt it was fine. I didn't hate the movie. I think it's a well-made, good movie, but mm, just a little cutesy for
Twee is a
me.
good word. No, I
Yeah.
think that that's fair. Inside Out hit me at a very particular point in my life. I rarely have like a personalized emotional response to movies where it's like I see myself in what's happening in this work of art. Inside Out 2 came when I was in the middle of navigating a move that I was very uncomfortable about and was not looking forward to. So when Riley is like, I don't want to move and I'm tired of having to pretend to you guys that I do, I was like, that's me. I'm exactly that. So I definitely lost my shit at Inside Out the first time that I saw it. But that's, art is a mystery.
It feels like Inside
Yes.
Out is kind of the movie that from Pixar. There's and I noted this on Letterbox. This is completely unrelated. Funny that people have lobbed Stephen Sondheim for years for being too cerebral, and he had to constantly push back on that uh,
Mhm.
uh, many times. I think this is actually quite cerebral in the sense that it and to a certain extent also Inception also feels that way. But I wanted to bring this back to Sondheim because he was actually working. He noted this in one of his last interviews. Um, he noted that he was working on a musical with, I believe, David Ives before he died, um, about the segregation of thoughts. And Pixar
Hmm.
basically stole his idea because, and the one thing that he didn't
Huh.
have that Pixar had was that sadness was necessary. So
Oh, interesting.
what
Interesting.
an Inside Out Stephen Sondheim musical would have looked like. It would have been probably fucking dazzling. Um, I
Yes.
would love to have seen it and heard the music, but alas, life.
Yeah,
Um,
a life. Yeah, I mean, this is also not a Stephen Sondheim podcast. I do feel like the 40 years of his life, or however long it was that he dedicated to trying to make Roadshow worked, I feel like he was not ever going to make a great show after that. I think it took too much out of him to get that show to where it was.
I don't want to harp too much on Sondheim, but when you were talking about Devil's Island, I got Pacific Overture vibes. How
Oh,
accurate?
sure,
Okay,
sure.
okay.
I would say actually it would be closer to like the forget what they call it, like the Sun Generation or something like that. Like there's a cycle of Japanese films in the 50s that are all about like young people being like disaffected and nihilistic and cool. That's really where I would take it more. I think Pacific Overtures is speaking to a different cultural moment, but it's certainly there's echoes there for
Got
sure.
it.
Soft Power certainly one of them. But yeah, no, I mean I think whatever we can say about Inside Out, it is a movie that is trying stuff out, and I think at the time it was new, it felt like all the stuff it was trying out worked. I rewatched that film with slightly more sober eyes, and I do question like, is it actually doing anything useful? And I think in some cases it is. I think in some cases maybe it's a little, as Cameron says, a little too twee. I still like the movie a lot. I mean, I still have it as a
Yeah.
4.5 star movie, but that is a movie that is trying to get to a place. And I feel like a lot of their subsequent movies are not trying very hard. And I think that's maybe where we're kind of at now is like there's a narrowing of ambition, I think, that
Yeah.
has happened with Pixar. And one of those things, go ahead.
Well, one of the well, I wanted to I want to hear your thoughts on that more. But like when you said all of that, I was thinking about Luca. When I rewatched Luca, it felt like um, Pixar wants us, and because I read all the interviews of like what they were inspired by, and I'm like, you're making a movie where you just want to act as cheerleader for all of these better movies. So like
Hmm.
you're that being a cheerleader for Fellini and Italian neorealism. So why are we watching your
Yeah.
movie?
Luca is a hard film for me to pin down why I don't like it because I feel like I should, and I don't.
Bean mouth.
I active I actively dislike Luca. It is Bean Mouth as part of it. If I were to pick a third Pixar film that I just don't care for after Cars 2 and Lightyear, it would probably be Luca. But no, one of the things that stands out to me, and again, using Brave as kind of an important inflection point, um, starting in 2011, which is when Cars 2 happens, they really get sequel happy. Like we have a Cars
Yeah.
sequel, we have a Monsters Incorporated prequel, we have another Cars sequel, we have Incredibles 2 and Toy Story 4. Um, and it has not yet become a persistent thing, although it's very horrible to contemplate that two of the three films they have dated are both sequels. And in neither case is it the first sequel.
Yeah. It definitely felt like I remember thinking this at the time too, that they were starting to kind of rest on their laurels, like, oh, we had a good
Hmm.
idea 10 years ago,
Hmm.
so let's just keep hacking away at that good idea. Um, yeah.
And I think there's actually something to that. There's very famously, they mentioned this in the Wally ad campaign, when they were starting the studio, and they were like, we're going to not starting the studio, but when they were starting to work on features, uh, a bunch of the people who were there from the beginning of the studio or recently, had gotten there pretty early on in its history, had a lunch meeting where they just started throwing ideas out. And that lunch meeting resulted in virtually every film like unanimously regarded as a top tier Pixar masterpiece. And part of me is like, is it just that they had a bunch of ideas that they were like grinding at for 10, 12 years, not that long, but several years. And so these ideas had really been refined to a gleaming edge. And you get things like Wally out of that. You get Monsters Incorporated. You get Finding Nemo. And then what comes after that, they sort of used up all their ideas, but they still have a studio and they're still making money. So do they just kind of start flopping stuff out? And instead of having 10 years to like refine it, they have like
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah, it does feel that way. And
Because that's also the point where you have again the Brave thing. You start to have like weird disagreements behind the scenes. So you have Brave, Good Dinosaur, um, and it actually started with Ratatouille, uh, where the first directors kicked off a project because it is generally agreed that it's not coming together and no one can figure out why. And I actually enjoy both Brave and The Good Dinosaur, but they are definitely films that were not made by a well-oiled machine. And I think that's the big change that starts to happen. The films are not coming to them effortlessly. They now are starting to have to work for them. And the working shows in the final project. I think both Brave and The Good Dinosaur definitely feel like movies that were stitched together out of various corpses.
It's almost like a band that in the '60s that assembles enough material for like their first two albums or so, and they really refine this material over the course of
Mm.
their early gigs. And this was actually the case with the Doors, where they went in to record the first two albums, and they were, I regard those first two Doors albums as their best. Some people might say L.A. Woman, which is I think their third. But when they went in to record the third one, it was like they were like pulling teeth at like Jim Morrison's notebooks. Going off on a little
You've
tangent here, but
reminded
that's
me,
yeah.
no, you reminded me of something that I've heard authors say. You have your whole lifetime to write your first novel, and you have a year to write your second novel.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. So that might be part of it. Um, but yeah, so like I'm curious though, because I feel like I've kind of been holding court a little bit, which is way too tempting for me to do when I'm talking Pixar, but I'll stand back here. What do the two of you like feel about this kind of period in the 2010s where it does seem like the wheels are starting to come off a little bit? Like how do you see that manifesting?
I well, starting I guess for me it doesn't necessarily start with I guess it actually probably still does start with Cars 2 because it sucks. Um and then Monsters U. There's a couple of really nice moments in Monsters U, but I don't like that movie
Yeah.
on the whole. Um again, I do like Inside Out very much. I do like Good Dinosaur, and Coco kind of still feels.
Coco.
It's
Yes.
still. I mean, there are bits of Coco more than most of the subsequent Pixar features. For me, that feels like a bright spot uh, in post Inside Out Pixar. I'm
Hmm.
in agreement with you that Incredibles 2 is the best post Inside Out Pixar feature, but um, I mean, I still feel like I'm in love with the design of the thing. I think the music is terrific. Great voice acting um, in Coco. But the point for me where Pixar kind of really started to derail, even more than had been than probably we were speculating, honestly, was Toy Story 4, um,
Hmm.
which is not which is not my least favorite by a long shot, but it is sort of the one that makes me the angriest.
Hmm.
Because it made a shit zillion dollars and ended up winning the and won the Oscar that year for best animated feature.
Yeah.
Um, there were many other films that were better, in my opinion, but Dragon 3, Klaus, and even I Lost My Body, which I didn't care for on the whole, but I
Oh,
still would have voted for
I
ahead of.
mean, like I Lost My Body is a very interesting piece of animation, if nothing else, which in theory
Oh
is at
yeah,
least part of what that award is going to.
yeah. One would think. I really liked I Lost My Body.
we can. I
But yeah.
there needs to be a whole separate conversation about the best animated
Yeah, we
feature
can have
Oscar.
that fight
I
separate
I
time.
feel like relitigating every year of Best Animated Feature might be a good podcast topic for when y'all want me to just get extremely wound up.
Okay.
I have so much whiskey ready for that, and I'm so ready. But I mean, but I'm right there with you. But for me, Toy Story 4, first of all, it betrays one of the best endings to maybe the best ending to a trilogy in American cinema, maybe. And I say American cinema
It's up there.
because Three Colors exists. Um, but
Okay. Hey, Tim, I like three colors French. There you go.
There you
How
go.
about that?
There you go.
There you go.
It's kind of Franco-Polish, though. I don't know if I can
Yeah.
let you have it.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
No, it's fine.
but and also it just is not to me. Toy Story 4 it feels so very spiritually distant from the other three movies. I'm not sold on Forky as a concept or as a character. I
Mm,
feel it does I and to me there's just less it does not feel as rich of an ensemble piece because Toy Story 3 was even with its limited screen time that it had for the rest of Andy's toys like Potato Head and everybody else, it still feels like they were actually trying with those characters and succeeding in giving them really nice quips that felt in character and still trying new things even with uh, even with regards to character designs. For me, Toy Story 4 did not take advantage of any of that, and it doesn't look like they're going to do any of that in Toy Story 5 either, which is, I'm going to be skipping that one in theaters. I have no desire to see that in theaters.
I am so proactively mad at Toy Story 5 for existing.
yeah.
I was, I
It
was,
Toy Story 4 and 5. Sorry, go
no, no,
ahead,
no,
Seth.
you go ahead, Cameron.
Toy Story 4 and 5, well, obviously I haven't seen 5. I don't know that I've seen all of 4 now that I think of it. It just feels unnecessary. And I think you're right. The 1, 2, 3 perfect trilogy.
Hmm.
It's kind of like why are we making more Star Wars movies? Like things were fine.
You
And
know, I feel like Pixar was always good, even when they were in like sequel mode and they were clearly lying their teeth off about. I think there needs to be a Cars 2 because X like no you don't. You think there needs to be a Cars 2 because you can sell car toys. But like there's always like a sense of like here was the idea that when we hit upon it we were like, "Oh, that's it." And like
yeah,
I think Mater as James Bond is a shit idea, but I get why you get excited about it at like 2 in the morning when you've been brainstorming Cars 2 ideas. And same with like Finding Dory. I think the movie's just kind of there, but like no, that's a good idea for a Finding Nemo sequel. Like
sure.
I feel like there's an idea there. I don't feel like they believed in the idea for Toy Story 4. I don't quite know what the idea is, honestly. Like Forky's the idea for the first 25 minutes of Toy Story 4, but then the remaining hour happens and I don't know what's like driving it.
I mean,
And that's the
Yeah.
first time that
give Annie Potts more gigs.
I mean, and whomst among us does not want that? But like, I don't know. It feels like maybe even uniquely the Pixar film that I don't know why the people making it want to be making it. Because even some of the ones I dislike, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the ongoing controversy of whether or not Pixar directors should be permitted to have personalities, which officially the answer is no. But I don't like a lot of those movies, but you can still tell, well, Onward is about something he believed in. And Turning Red is very definitely about her extremely unresolved feelings towards her mother and
Yes.
stuff like that. So like even though I'm not like really into those movies, I think Onward's actually pretty lousy. They're animated by a passion, and I just don't see that Toy Story 4 is.
Uh-huh. On that note, I just want to echo what Zev said about Coco. Um, I think looking at the films that came out in the 2010s, uh, yeah, Toy Story 3 is good, Incredibles 2 was good, but Coco was the one that has like really stuck with me.
Oh, interesting.
Um, I I think I was not prepared for how much I was gonna cry in Coco.
Okay. It's a real good
Um,
tearjerker.
yeah, it like dug deep into my soul. And you know what? Maybe that's why I was sort of meh on Soul. It not really is doing the same thing, but it's sort of in the same realm as Coco, and I think Coco did it better. Like the concept of not wanting to be forgotten, which is sort of like a theme throughout Pixar, period, is and it just really hits home in that movie for me. The song and the music, I think, is and that one song is like a big reason as to why.
Sure.
So,
Here is my
yeah.
Are,
scorching hot take.
Okay.
I actually like the music sequences in Soul better than those of Coco. I think that
Mm, okay.
yeah, I mean I had more of a gut reaction to those in Soul probably because I mean, you know, musician in New York doing both composition and performance and teaching gigs. That's like that's me. That's also so.
That's fair.
I'm not a jazz pianist. I'm not a pianist by any regards. I'm a guitar player, but as somebody who just has been living and breathing music practically every day in this city for 10 years, that was kind of. But for so when he's up auditioning for the first time and he's sort of like going into that own world, it's like entering. I think I may have mentioned this to Tim at one point. It was kind of like seeing Remy combine the strawberries and cheese and ratatouille. Gave me that little
Hmm.
feeling. But then later, towards the end of the movie, where he sits down in his apartment after that first gig, and he's playing just very solemnly, and he's re-entering sort of I forget the zone mindset, and um, John Baptiste's piece is just so soothing, but also just incredibly introspective at that moment. For me, that was actively transporting in a way that uh, felt a little bit radical for basically any American animation studio at that time
Hmm.
doing something so centered around music. So I really appreciated the music
Okay.
sequences in Soul for that. So, um, and Soul for me was,
Yeah.
I mean, far and away the best thing that they've done in the 2020s. But uh,
I mean, I think I have to agree at least in part because what possibly would be your other pick?
Right.
Um, I will actually say Soul is a movie that I found I was very disappointed when I rewatched Soul, which I did a couple years ago. Um, because I really quite liked it at the time. It was December 2020. There was a pandemic. Things were fraught in the world. So I just like latched onto it. It's like, oh my God, it's a movie. And there have been so many
Right.
not movies that have come out in the last several months. Um, Rewatching it, I found it to have just a really unfinished idea of how it was trying to combine its afterlife fantasy with its photorealistic New York
Huh.
story.
sure.
And I don't know, it felt like it was not done baking to me a little bit.
I mean, I think it gets forgotten in the conversation about Pixar quite
I
often.
think so.
So, and perhaps that's why, and I don't really know, was it finished before COVID hit?
I
And
don't think it was I think it was finished remotely, but I mean it was
okay,
surely most of the way towards finished at that point.
right. I know it was slated to be released sometime in the early stages of COVID,
Hmm.
I believe, right? And
Yeah.
then it got released direct to Disney Plus.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Soul, Luca, and Turning Red. So when you said you didn't see Turning Red in theaters, Cameron, no one did.
Oh, okay.
Soul, Luca, and Turning Red were the three like direct to Disney Plus Pixar
Got it.
films.
I think
Yeah.
they may have re-released Turning Red at some point in theaters, but I didn't
I
see
think
it.
they re-released all of them, and Turning Red is the only one that did like any numbers, but even then, any numbers meant it did like $3 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like I don't think Soul or Luca even managed to break a million because everyone had them on Disney Plus at that point.
Right.
Um, the thing that kind of baffles me as I look over these films and I think about these films. Um, in theory, I want to like some of these movies, and I think Turning Red in particular is the Disney film that or the Pixar film that I just really struggle with why I don't like it more, and I'm sure the aesthetic is part of it. But I said this about Luke as well. Uh, Turning Red even more so though, because I enjoy seeing film directors dealing with something that is dark, and Domishi hates her mom. And the first two things she made at Pixar were Turning Red and Bow. The short film Bow was the first thing. And these are both all about my Chinese tiger mom is the worst person on the planet and I want her to die. It's basically like the subtext of both of these movies. And like in principle, I'm excited by that. Like I'm excited by a director who's just really that passionately driven by anything,
Vindictive.
not even
Gosh.
just vindictive, just like has something that they really need to exercise out of their body. And
Yeah.
it's very clear that her relationship with her mother is very challenging for her. So in theory, I'm like excited to see that being worked out, but it also feels like Turning Red is so much. And I think this is really where I start to see things starting maybe with Onward, definitely starting with Soul, like which I called Half Baked. It feels like the movies are a bunch of ideas that aren't really like a whole yet. Because Turning Red is basically three consecutive stories
Mm.
to
Hmm.
me, and like, and I feel like there's that's what's missing there. It's like this is notions. These are the index cards for things you want to put into a movie. It doesn't feel like it's a script yet.
And
Yeah,
that
it's not. Go ahead, Zev.
no, you got it.
Okay. It's not dissimilar from like when you are making a short film in film school and you have a great idea and don't know how to end it.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of these movies kind of fall victim to that, where it's like,
Yeah.
what if fire and water fell in love? And then where does that go? Oh, I don't know, but it's gonna
Absolutely.
defy the laws of physics quite often.
Elemental more than maybe any of the other ones in the 2000, the 2010, 2020s, whatever decade we're in, the 2020s, more than
Yeah.
maybe any other movie. It's like you had a log line
Uh-huh.
and then you suddenly found yourself making a movie and you're like, what if there was something to do with civic infrastructure? It's like, where did you get that from? This
Like,
is a love
wow,
story.
this is
This is a race
boring.
race themed love story. Why
Yeah.
is it now about like being in the city archives looking for like ownership deeds?
That was my
Say,
when I was rewatching Elemental, I saw that they had done their research by watching like hours of YouTube videos of like touristy things. I'm like, that's so painful how much that tracks. I hate it. I hate it.
hmm.
So, but but that point about index cards so perfectly applies to both Inside Out 2 and to Elio. Inside Out 2 in particular, it just kind of feels like there are so many ideas that they introduce, and and I guess the one thing is they kind of do get swallowed up a little bit by anxiety, which is maybe the point of the movie. I don't know that I'm still sold on anxiety as a character. Uh, Maybe we'll see when Inside Out 3 comes out, but
God forbid.
had
Mm,
certainly Elio had so many things happening that I don't think a single one of them gauged my interest.
yeah.
I have a number of issues with Inside Out 2. I think conceptually it is a very weird film. I think Inside Out 1 is a film about how what if we imagined that the inside of your brain was a landscape so that we could tell a metaphorical story about emotions. And Inside Out 2 is the inside of your brain is a landscape and there are people in it. And like I think there's a difference there. But the thing that really annoys me, and Cameron, you work with children, so maybe you can comment on this.
Oh,
Uh,
good. Okay.
it is a film that more or less explicitly states that you don't feel anxiety until you enter puberty, and that it is not an emotion that children have access to. And that I think is wrong in a way that is
Ab
like toxic.
yeah. Abjectly wrong.
Yeah.
And like maybe this is something that's fairly new in children. I mean, I certainly have noticed it be more pronounced in kids since the COVID pandemic, which
Mm.
is that's a whole other podcast, but it's yeah, anxiety is absolutely a thing in small children as young as 2, I think.
Absolutely.
If not even infants, like there's a whole theory of attachment called anxious attachment, and that starts when you're an infant, and so I think I hadn't thought about that as far as one of the reasons that Inside Out 2, which I did not see, felt wrong, but that makes a lot of sense that
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is a very prevalent emotion, not just when you hit puberty.
And I mean Inside Out too. Go ahead. Well, that's like a world
Hmm.
building product problem there is that like all of the new emotions are variations on the old emotions. So why do we have them? I mean, like from a psychological standpoint, yes, we have these emotions, but like in the narrative universe of Inside Out, why isn't anxiety a supercharged version of fear? Why isn't uh like shyness a kind of variant version of sadness? Why are they like new characters? It seems very half-assed to me. But it made so much money.
Uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't, I would quibble with the idea of shyness and sadness being related, but okay.
It's
Just
actually
me.
one of the things that the movie argues is that they are, and I think it's
Okay.
one of the cleverer things that the movie argues. But
Huh.
it's
Now I don't
also
want to see it at all. Great. Sorry.
I I'm not trying to tell you to see Inside Out 2. I don't think it's good.
Okay.
Um, but no, it's the only Pixar film of the current decade that made like a significant ton of money.
Uh-huh.
And that I think is yep. Yep. And it's the highest grossing English or American animated film until Zootopia 2. So it's made a lot of
Wow.
money. And I think it's the reason why we now have like a very clear commitment to sequels at Pixar, especially because Elio tanked really hard. But I mean, talk about movies that were just not baked. Like I again, Elio was a very personal project, and Elio is sort of the project that Pete Docter's stupid thing about like we can't tell personal stories anymore, which is very much throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We know that it was kind of based on the original director Adrian Molina was like basing the character on himself, but I don't know that he had a story or if it was just like I think it would be neat to see a version of myself as a kid in a movie in space because that here's the everything about it's kind of the reverse of Brave, where I'd love to see Brenda Chapman's original version. Uh, I feel like Adrian Molina's original version of Elio, I don't want at all because the only part of that movie that works for me, there's a subplot with the little kid's aunt who like realizes she's been a kind of really bad parent figure. Apparently, that was entirely added by the second directing team, and that's the only part of the movie that I thought worked. So
Huh.
I don't know. But I find myself, we've kind of diagnosed that there are problems here. Do we have whys? Zev, you said but you had questions like why is this happening? Do we have thoughts on why this is happening at this point?
I think, I mean, we've touched on obviously sequelitis, and it got me wondering that Pixar is now tending. It feels like they are marketing their sequel movies to hell and back like nobody's business, while their original movies they don't really market quite as highly, and that might be part of it. Um, I know because Inside Out 2, I saw ads for that thing everywhere, and I barely saw it.
Hmm.
I don't think there was quite a lot for Elio. I mean, or for Hoppers even. But um, so
I
I,
feel like they pushed Elio harder than Hoppers. They didn't push Hoppers like at all.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
I wonder if it doesn't have something to do with, I mean, so Disney acquires Pixar in 2006.
Hmm.
I feel like maybe the Ratatouille, Wall-E, Up, Toy Story 3, Cars 2 potentially, like that run right after that were ideas that were already in the
Mm.
hopper, so to speak. And like I wonder, I don't want to say, oh, it's Disney's fault necessarily, but I wonder if then the thumb of Disney started to kind of come down on ideas that they develop.
I mean, certainly I feel like that explains an emphasis on sequels.
Yeah,
Because, yeah.
I
right.
also wonder to a certain extent because 2006 was also when John Lasseter was put in charge of both Pixar and in charge of Disney Animation, and I think there was as much as we can shit on John Lasseter now, there was probably only so much attention that he could give to either studio sort of overseeing the entire thing. Um,
And I would also say you had the question, why are Disney and Pixar so hard to distinguish from each other? I think it goes back to that. I think that melding the leadership of the two studios was inherently going to mean that they were going to gravitate towards a shared medium.
Hmm.
I think it was a terrible mistake to make him the CEO of the entire animation output. But that was 20 years ago, and he is in disgrace now. Can't really be relitigated at this point. But yeah, no, I think that's part of it. I think there's just kind of a bigger issue with cinema where it
Okay.
is tough as hell. And I mean, Project Hail Mary is kind of an exception right now. And last year at about the same time, Sinners was an exception. It is tough as hell to market a film that's not an IP cash in right now. Like
Hmm.
the movies that make money are sequels. And Pixar is not immune to that, and they're going to because I mean, it's easy to say there's a golden age, the movies were so much better. Yeah, but those movies also made money. Like when Ratatouille only quote unquote made 206 million in the US, that was viewed as like a shocking underperformance. And they've only had one movie break 200 million in like 8 years. And that's like with inflation accounting for it as well. So like they're going to make movies that turn a profit. They're not like a little boutique. So they are going to gravitate for better or for worse towards these things that they are known quantities financially, and that is going to mean more sequels, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, since Ratatouille came out, though, we've also had the rise of streaming platforms, and
Mhm.
so like I think the lack of these movies making a ton at the box office, you can't discount the fact that it's just as easy for people to watch these
Sure.
movies on their TV, especially because they're animated. It's not like, oh, you have to go see the sweeping vistas of the Mar or whatever space landscape that's in Project Hail Mary on a
Mhm.
big screen. You have to go see Dune on a big screen. There's not that aspect of it, um, at least in my opinion. And that's actually a question I had for you, Tim, my animation scholar. Uh, do you think that the animation has gotten markedly worse?
So it's tough for me to answer that because it has certainly gotten less to my tastes.
Yes, same.
Um, and I don't want to conflate. I really don't like bean mouth style animation. It gets called different things. Some
Yeah.
people call it cal arts, which is just not correct. Like that's a very bad use of the word CalArts, but like the style of like round faces with chubby cheeks, bean-shaped mouths, I don't care for it.
Mm,
And it has become like Luca turning red, Elio all use it,
yeah.
and I think it's off-putting. Does that mean it's bad? Yes, because I am the only person whose opinion that matters, but also like from a technical stand, and this is again Turning Red. Why don't I like it more? Turning Red is like an ambitious movie in that it's trying to do a lot of like weird things from anime in CG.
hmm
And we know this can work because, and here's my hot take: K-pop Demon Hunters, which is a way better version of Turning Red. Um, K-pop Demon Hunters also is like we're going to pull in all of this anime iconography and the way that characters move in anime, but do it in CGI. And I rather think it works in K-pop Demon Hunters. I think that that movie I underrated when I gave it 3 stars. To be perfectly frank, I think I was just so shocked that I liked it at all. I was like, well, I can't overrate this thing. But so Turning Red is trying something and is mostly succeeding with this thing. So like from a technical standpoint, yeah, it's doing something well. I feel the thing it's doing is like I don't know, it's just not it's not appealing to me and I can't
Yeah.
I don't know. But then you look at something like Inside Out 2, which I didn't really care for, and like that's every bit the technical match of Inside Out 1.
Yeah. I mean, I agree about Turning Red. That's the one I was thinking of in particular when I said I think the animation has gotten worse. Like
I will say
yeah.
I think that movie has weirdly soft backgrounds in a way that I
Hmm.
can't explain through the style. It feels like that movie is cheaper than it is to me. I look at Turning Red and I assume that that movie was made specifically to like cut a budget, and it's not. Like that is a very expensive movie. So by that's
Hmm.
maybe that is a sign that something's gone awry in the animation. I don't know. Because like to me, you make a film look like that specifically because you want to cut some corners. And sometimes that's a real reason to make something and you can make it work. I don't know.
You
But they
also
didn't. That's an expensive movie.
you also said a while back that Disney became an effects house rather than a character animation house, and I wonder if Pixar has also kind of fallen into that. Even though you still said that they still have the best rendering in the business,
I
and
mean, I would absolutely, even though I don't like it, I think the character animation in Pixar films is definitely nothing in any Pixar film is as ungainly as like Raya and the Last Dragon, which is a movie that I think has kind of shamefully bad character animation. Um, just in terms of like the characters kind of move really stiffly and there's not like a lot of expressivity to their movement. I
right,
mean, Turning Red and Elio, the characters express themselves. Elemental, which I think is a very misguided stylistic approach. Uh, you can absolutely sort of get what's going on with the fire girl in Elemental.
Yeah,
I don't like the way it turned out, but like they're trying stuff there. And I think in Disney's case, with the exception of the Zootopias specifically, I think they have just really forgotten how to express emotion through character movement. But that's a whole other podcast. One where I'd be a lot angrier than I am in this one, frankly.
we'll see. We'll see with the next 30 Pixar films.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
jeez.
I do want
But
to. I do want
the
to hug.
mhm.
I do want to plug Hoppers a little bit before we, because I think we are probably at.
We need to start wrapping up. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to say, I don't know if it's good, but it is my favorite that they've done since Soul, and that is
Okay.
mostly because the second half goes off the rails in places I was not expecting it to. It just
Okay.
Okay.
it kind of becomes I it would be sacrilegious of me to say that this becomes a Chuck Jones cartoon in the second half, but and I'm sure when you see it you will want to kill me for saying that. But 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 it reminds me more of that than any Pixar film released in the 2020s. So yay. Because the first 40 minutes for me was kind of almost standard, sweet, insipid Pixar. But then starting with I think the council meeting, and this will make sense once you've seen the movie where it starts. By the way, I have never cared about Pixar Easter eggs at all. There is an Easter egg in this that made me happier than any other.
Okay.
So
That's a good
Uh,
enough reason to see it,
yeah,
I feel like, for Tim
honestly,
and I.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
not, you got me
yeah.
curious for
Yeah.
sure.
But it really becomes just totally insane to a degree where I was having a lot of fun with it.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil too much more than that because
Please,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
no.
know that I still know that a lot of the alternate ending community has yet to see it. So, and they might be waiting for
Okay.
you to see it. So,
We shall see. There, I regret anyone who waits for me to see movies in theaters at this juncture
I was
in
gonna
our
say,
shared lives.
nobody hold their breath because
I saw like four movies in a theater in 2025. I have fallen off
yeah.
hard. But I just wanted to offer one other last kind of thought on like what is happening. And I this is an unanswerable question, but it does I think get to the question of, well, Disney kind of sucked them in. Can we just blame Disney, Disney, Disney? And why not? Disney is a bona fide evil company. But I wonder if something happened in the culture where maybe as a result of kind of Brave and Good Dinosaur happening, or maybe they precede, I don't know. I wonder if something happened at Pixar where they lost the ability to let ideas take the time they needed. Because what I'm seeing as I look over this list, and I think it crops up maybe even in Soul, but definitely Onward, maybe Soul, Turning Red. God knows it turns up in Lightyear, Elemental, Elio. It doesn't feel like they figured out what the story is
yeah.
entirely. And I wonder if it's just that like Disney is now saying, or someone is saying, here is the amount of time you get, and you need to make a movie at the end of that time, come hell or high water. Because I know that that happens on Disney. I know that that was actually a big problem with Frozen 2 is
Hmm.
that they weren't like people on Frozen 2 weren't happy with the story at the point in time that they had to lock the story.
Yeah.
And like is this maybe happening at Pixar too? They just their timetable's there and they go as far as they can and whatever they've got is what they've got.
I also
Well,
I
this is
yeah. Go ahead, Cameron.
sorry. This is kind of what I meant when I said it feels like a student film. We're like,
Yeah.
and specifically, I'm thinking about the thesis film that I made or I shot in grad school, where like we had this idea, the director had this idea in the script, and he wasn't sure how to end it. And at a certain point, we just had to say, this is how it ends. And so basically, what you do at that point is, oh, you kill the main character. So okay, because we didn't know what else to do. And so that's actually not exactly how my spoiler for my thesis film, somebody dies that nobody will ever see. Um, but because we didn't know what else to do, it was just like, okay, well, now the end, this person's dead. And there wasn't time to actually figure out what the story needed. And I think you're absolutely right. That's
Yeah. And
where I was going with that.
yeah, I guess to me, it's just a question of why is that true now and it wasn't true 10 years, 15 years ago? Or maybe it was true. I don't know.
I also wonder if they've Miyazaki'd too close to the castle in the sky.
Certainly, I think Luca is a film that would benefit from not being aware of who Miyazaki is. But yeah,
I really love Miyazaki as a verb.
yes,
Let's make that happen.
yes. But yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think we solved the question of what the hell is going on with Pixar, but I think we agreed that it's a tough time to love that studio. Although you've given me some hope for Hoppers. I am hoping
Yeah,
to see that movie. If not in theaters, then quickly after it comes out on streaming. So thank
yeah.
you. Thank you both. Thank you for joining me. Before we part ways, any exciting news, any place we can find you online? Cameron, you've got anything in the hopper, as it were?
No, I don't really have anything at the moment. As I've said many times recently, my Babysitters Club podcast is on a extended life hiatus at the moment. And other than that, you can find me on Letterboxd if you want to know what I'm watching. So,
Which I will say, I think the last time you and I were on a podcast together, I had not actually started listening to your podcast on the Babysitters Club.
oh,
I now
and
have started listening to your podcast. It it's colored by the fact that I know all of the hosts personally, but I find it
sure.
a joy
Oh,
to
I
listen
thank you.
to. It's just
Happy to hear it.
it's so much the thing it wants to be, which is just
Great.
you are all grappling with who you were as 10-year-olds, and I think that's a beautiful thing to see happening. I actually really enjoyed all of the episodes I've listened to. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, who we were as 10-year-olds and who we are now as early 40-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah.
No, when I make my trips down to Madison to see my partner, I pop on a couple episodes. It's a very nice way to pass that time. So thank you for that.
Thanks. Thank you for the shout out. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So that is Stony Brook Reunion if you want to follow Tim's footsteps and find that on any podcast service you listen to. So,
Zev, how about yourself? You got any exciting things to share at this moment, or still working on stuff?
Yeah, I my website is down. I'm going to be replacing it with Real Crafter in
Okay.
the next couple of weeks. But a couple of short films that I scored last year are making their festival runs right now. I'm happy to I'm happy to email you the IMDb pages for those. But my metal album should be coming out. It just got approved by a publisher. I found a good home for it,
Excellent.
nice.
hopefully that'll start making the rounds. I just finished up a new solo piano album that should hopefully be coming out in the next couple of months, and working on a new album right now. Working on music for a podcast, and yeah, just making things happen here in this little cave of mine.
Excellent. And I am, as always, your host, Tim Brayton. You can find me here. You can find me on Letterboxd. You can find me in rural Wisconsin if you happen to be in rural Wisconsin, and God save you if you are. We are going to be coming back next week with Bride of Alternate Ending, where we will be celebrating the recent nuptials of our very own Brennan Klein with the first of a 3-month cycle of movies about people dying horribly on their honeymoon. So be sure to check that out. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to support us on Patreon if you like what you've heard, and we will catch you next time.